My talk today will take you on a journey that I believe most of you either went through on or is about to start. It starts with something that's really harmless enough. Let's build some observability. Let's maybe ship our logs to Elasticsearch, Loki, Victoria Metrics, or whatever. Scrap our metrics to Prometheus, Mimir, or Influx, and deploy a couple of community alerting tools. Alerts are flowing, observability sorted. Yeah? How hard can that be? As always, famous last words, yeah? In our journey today, I'm gonna take you on how we build observability at Auto1 from early days that we started observability, going through the scale of chaos and ending in a more collaborative and, dare I say, fully manageable at scale observability with crafted automation. Of course, there will be pit stops, there will be engine troubles, but also there will be some bold choices and hopefully great takeaways for you along the way. Yeah. So, who's the person leading you in the journey? I'm Aid. So, as you can see, I wear multiple hats. I have been working for more than 14 years of experience in DevOps and release engineering, SRE. My goal is always to build scalable and reliable systems, breaking few while I doing that as well, trying to automate everything from code up to maybe coffee. Aside from that, from the technical side, when I'm outside the terminal, I love to do hiking, traveling, and play badminton. I love to give back to the community. I used to be a TEDx organizer, still TED translator, and I love to think of myself as a youth advocate at the age of 37. If that's still true or not, I don't know. Denial is a really coping mechanism for technical people, yeah? Okay, before delving into the technical aspects, let me give you a little bit about Auto1 because this sets a little bit of the context of the scale that we are talking about. In Auto1, we are building a reliable, fast-paced digital marketplace in Europe for used cars. Our goal pretty much is not just to move cars, but to transform the entire industry because we are making it transparent and data-driven, fully digital to buy, sell, and finance cars. We have three major brands, which is Verkaufen Auto.de, Auto Hero, and Auto1, which targets all the business models that you can think of from customer to customer, business to business, business to customers, and customers to business. Yeah. With that, we are operating in more than 30 plus markets across Europe. Okay. Yeah. Across Europe. And we have, more than 540 locations powered by more than 6,300 employees and selling almost around 700 to 750,000 cars a year. So at this scale, observability is not something that you actually want in your organization. It's something that you need. And because of that, we try to operate as Formula One pit inside Auto1. So we try to operate at scale, as efficient as possible, and we try always to optimize. This is how the story starts. So in our case, we started to build observability. We went to traditional way. We shipped our logs to Elasticsearch. We scrapped our metrics into Influx, the open source version, deployed Elas Alert for alerting on the logs, Capacitor for alerting on metrics. And it felt like everything under control, like putting our training wheels for observability. We felt empowered, alert is working, life is good. But things never stay as the same because business scale. So this is what happens. Business scales, our teams grow in terms of diversity, in terms of skills sets, and alerts as well multiplied along with that. So suddenly we ended up with managing more than for the observability in the organization for more than 1,300 microservices that generates more than 3 billion lines of logs daily, scrapping around 3 to 3.5 million measurements. And this resulted on more than 2,500 alerts per day. So this is where it started to hit us, that we are actually not managing observability or not having a proper observability, but actually we are managing an alert chaos. So this is what actually we ended up with. And why is that? Because we discovered that they have a lot of blind spots across the way because alerts got missed. Some alerts were easily misconfigured because the way they were done. The second thing is that we suffered from alert fatigue because of fragmented tools. Logs generating different views, alerts generating different metrics, generate another set of metrics. Everyone is looking at the fragmented part of the equation. Teams just don't know what's going on, leads to confusion, leads to urgency, leads to confusion, and confusion leads to chaos. Yeah. And the third one, the tool limitations, because no matter what tool you will select for observability, it will do a single job that's really great. And then there are parts that will be always missing. There will be a gap that you need to close smartly. So at this point, you reach to a resolution that you actually don't know where the problem resides. Is it in your data? Is it in the alerting logic that you're using? Is it in the tools itself? And you know that this is where you need to do something. You need to change. Yeah, in our case, when the alert reached its peak, we decided that we don't want actually a band-aid to another band-aid to actually just fix things and make it work again. So we wanted something that will talk at our scale and can serve us well and also serves the needs of our teams. So we went back one step and looked at how the teams are actually using our observability, what our teams are actually needing from all of these alerts and all of these tools that we have. And with that, we took a really bold yet logical, in our case, decision is to centralize our logs and metrics in the Elasticsearch stack. So we moved our metrics to Elastic and we migrated our alerting framework to Kibana alerts. So bold because Elasticsearch is not your first go-to tool for metrics compared to other systems. Also, there is a compromises that we had to do for this. And yet logical, why? Because first of all, we did have an investment made in Elasticsearch for our logs and for other kind of things that we are using, like for the instance, the security and APM. So we're also using this. But for the metrics, it was in another tool. And the most important second item that makes this more logical to us is that for each and every metric store that we did a POC on, what we could see that the teams were happy about the performance of that specific tool, but they were going the other way around, is that trying to build the custom tools to stitch a way to have the logs in Elasticsearch with APMs and traces, and then this metrics in a single view. So what we figured out is that what really matters is to have this kind of unified view where they can really alert on these data somewhere. This is why we moved there. And with Kipa, or like with moving to that, it actually gave us a little bit more of advantage, having a real-time alerting. There was a simplified work for non-technical team because we have a lot of non-technical team people building these kinds of alerts themselves. And yeah, so they were able to actually create alerts in a couple of clicks instead of having a crash course on YAML or how to build a DSL query or Lucene query, etc. And also, this made the security team quite happy because of the role-based access controls that it was provided outside the box. And yeah, also with the unified observability workflows, we are currently having the logs, metrics, APM, traces, SLOs, alerts for observability and security under a single framework. This made things a little bit much more better for us. Yeah. So Kibana alerting came our centralized command center. It gave us a little bit more of what our tools used to have. Like for instance, we were able to use some alerts delays to handle some use cases where when SRE is on call and we know there is a certain maintenances happen, or there is a certain alert that will trigger at certain point of time, or there is a known issue that we don't want to have a lot of notification along. And the action filters will actually give us the power to control every bit of notification routing, like we could just do smart routing. Also, the advanced aggregations and ESQL, where actually the writing queries became really simpler, I would say, and we were able to merge a lot of complex aggregation across multiple indices. And for instance, like currently we are playing around with having a smart alerts that triggers on both logs and metrics. When you have a certain log that relates also with a metric, for instance, let's say that you have a spike of 500 alerts and there is a stress in the host, and you are running Java, so most probably there is some correlation going there. So our alerts started to become smart in that ecosystem. And one of the things that was good and bad at the same time is the comprehensive alert management. So there was a proper alert lifecycle where you know that the alert is actually recovered, it's active, or there is no data if it's flapping. But also, will come in the future, it actually created a challenge for us, which we will address later on. But again, let's not romanticize a lot about the good sides of this move, because as Uncle Ben once said, with great set of features always comes complexity and hidden challenges, because In reality, there is no tool that actually solves everything that you aim to achieve. There'll always be like this 10% gap, or there is a complexity somewhere. So for us, Kibana was not like, or like this move was not the silver bullet that solved everything. It did reduce complexity a little bit, but not completely. And there were still a little bit of gap that we needed to cover. This movement somehow, I would say, it centralized the complexity. So it became in one place where we can really focus and know how to tackle the problems that we had. Yeah. In order to make this actually work at scale, we need to answer a really couple of hard questions. So the first one was, what about GitOps? Kibana provides us with a lot of nice dashboards, UI clicks, etc. But when it comes to alerting, we needed like a single source of truth. We needed to have an automated way to deploy these alerts, to know, to create them in a GitOps model where they are versioned and stored. The second thing is the audit, like how can we track who did what? So this is partially is coming like outside of the box with Kibana audit log, but the audits that we want here is that when you do an engineer X did an alert and engineer Y modify it, I want to know what has been changed. And this changes, for instance, happened on the itself. It's not through the GitOps. So I want to know to get these kind of devs. The third one is that it's coming from the non-technical people, because we have a nice UI. We don't need to deal with these YAMLs. We don't want to know Lucene, for instance. We just go to the UI, run our query, we can see it, and then create an alert out of that. So can we keep a UI experience and still enjoy this intuitive UI while having the GitOps model in place? And the third thing is that as every tool that you have, there will be some implementations or some gaps that you'll need to have a custom workarounds. And these custom workarounds won't be easy. They will be like a little bit complex. So can we simplify this implementation somehow? Or how can we do that? So this is where the fun started, I would say. And this is where we came with this bi-directional automation. So we created what we called a bi-directional automation. And the goal of this automation is actually to keep UI and Git in sync. So we can have a GitOps and we can have a UI at the same time. So if we look like at a high level, if we go from the code to the UI track, I hope this is the, no, sorry. Here, I think this, it starts with GitHub. So in the GitHub, we have our Kibana alerts definitions, and we will go through these definitions, how we made them, but pretty much it was either a JSON file or a YAML file. In our case, we used YAML because it was coming from ElastAlert, and ElastAlert uses YAML, so we have some kind of direct migration to that format, so the user experience is still the same. And then you just commit your Kibana alert here, whether it's a new, whether it's a change, and submit a PR. Once the PR is triggered, then the SCM will run a Jenkins job. The Jenkins job will actually run a Terraform infrastructure as a code. So we have a Terraform state for these Kibana alerts. And the Terraform will deploy the Kibana alerts to Kibana via REST API. The other way around, so I have an alert, or I created an alert in Kibana. So once I created the alert, we have some kind of remote API trigger. And this was, I would say, quite, I don't know, smart, crazy, I don't know. So in Kibana alerts, you can have the ability to trigger a webhook. So we used Kibana alerts to use this kind of thing because, like for instance, when you have a Kibana audit trail, so we create an alert, an event actually gets written inside Kibana audit trail, and you can alert on it, extract the information of the alert IDs, who did what was changed, and the actual payload of the alert itself, and then send a webhook to run a Jenkins jobs with all of this information there. And there is, in the Jenkins, we have a job that runs a Python that has been internally developed, which it extracts all of these information, creates a Terraform file, and then run a def to actually know what was changed between the alert, if it's in the GitHub, in the Git repo, or create a new file for it if it's not, and then raise a PR in the Git in the name of the agent or the bot here, but it will log all the information like this was changed by user X, so it mentions the user ID, and then you will have a full def about what's changes. And then once it's merged, we also sync the Terraform state with all of the information here. Looking a little bit in depth. So in the hub, as we can see, we have repo, one per environment. So we can also have tests beforehand and before moving to production. So we have also a pipeline for that. It contains minimal YAML or JSON configuration file. So the automation supports both of them. Our choice was YAML, but generally people can also go with the JSON format. And these kind of YAMLs, it's not like the whole stuff that you would look at. It's just the basic simple commands that you need to have. Like for instance, what Slack channel I want to alert to, or what is the message that I need. So it's like really minimal configuration set that you just need to provide, and the automation takes care of all of the background work jobs after that. And there's the Terraform module that we built for infrastructure code. We use the Elasticsearch provider, Terraform provider. I would say it was really nice and painful experience at the same time because the provider wasn't really ripe until recently, I would say, but it came a long way from there. And for the missing parts, we just deployed we just created, some Python libs for that. So for instance, we have a validation job. So once you submit a YAML file or a YAML file is being created by automation, there is like a validation for the schema to make sure that you are sending to the allowed channels, for instance, for all of these kind of things. There is also, we build a Terraform data source for Slack, because if you have dealt with Slack using Terraform and you wanted, for instance, to provide just a channel name and then your backend just only takes a channel ID, it's not something that you can easily do with Terraform data source. So we have something that you just provide a channel name and it gets the channel ID, because this is what's required by Kibana. And the third and fourth part is actually around the migration, so the import rule engine. So this becomes important when Kibana, the changes happen in the UI, and then it's being sent in the GitHub. So it handles all the UI updates, deletions, creations, and it supports also single and bulk modes. So the single mode is generally when just one alert is done, but the bulk mode is for when we do the migration, because Kibana alert does existed before, and there was a couple of alerts that were created and in production and running, so we need to push them here. So we use the bulk mode. And we have also the rule migration engine, which just converted the currently existing YAML alerts into the automation format that we needed. For the Kibana alert, as I said, we have the Kibana audit logs enabled. So this means that every action that has been done on Kibana is being logged there, and we utilize Kibana alerts to implement the event-based trigger. And this is mainly just an alert that looks at a certain actions, like an alert created, or alert updated, or alert deleted, and then it extracts the data from the document and extracts the payload, sends that to the Jenkins job, which runs this Python, and then deploy the PR. For the Jenkins, it's just DSL pipelines. There's additional things. You can use GitHub Actions if you want, or any CI/CD tool of choice. It's just a way to run the validation jobs, deployment on PR merges, auto import, and migration-related one-time pipelines. Aside from that, so this pretty much solves the bi-directional problem where we wanted to have a UI and Kibana or GitOps at the same model. We have an audit in place, but what actually drove us on top of the edge is the simplification of complex features. Because, for instance, one of the things that, or I would say two of the coolest features that I will demonstrate now, there is much more. So the re-alerting. Because re-alerting in Kibana up to the latest version does not have a built-in re-alert feature out of the box. So if you want to do a re-alerting, there is no toggle button that you can enable. There is a way to do that, but because we have a proper alert lifecycle, and if you ever used Elas Alert before, the re-alert actually there means some kind of silencing. It's not a re-alert by its actual sense, because there is no actual status. Like you cannot have a recovered alert from Elas Alert or something. So it's some kind of silencing, and if the alert is active after this silencing period, it just triggers it again, and you can have like exponential alerts after that. This resulted in a change of experience to the user. And also because Kibana alerts detects what's called flapping alerts. So the flapping alerts, like when the alert is active and then it's recovered, active and then recovered, this in the new system led to an actual alert fatigue, because when you have a proper alerting system, each of these is actually a different alert ID, and with different alert ID, you just get a new notification over and over. So how we solved this? So we created the re-alerting, which in Kibana can be implemented properly with two custom actions. The first one, you have a maintenance window. So the maintenance window, it just silences the alert with the group like that was matched for a certain period of time, which is pretty much the alert or silence period that's there. And then there is another action that handles notification. So this one that actually sends the notification to the Ops Genie, Slack, whatever. And both of these use the alert action filters. So we look at the Kibana alert start and Kibana status, and if there is any maintenance windows before. Because if there's no maintenance windows before, this is the first time that the alert has been seen, then we just send a notification. If it's, for instance, the second time, then there is a maintenance window before. So we look at the time. Is the time like matching or greater than what we want for the alert? If not, we don't alert. If yes, then we re-alert again, and we keep that up and running. So this is how it looks in the UI. Like it's two actions, one for maintenance window. You can see the, like for instance here, 10 minutes alert. And we have, so this is the maintenance window and this is the email action. And you can see it's a little bit complex for a non-technical user or even average user who is not spending his day in Kibana to know how to deploy this. So what we did in the automation is that you don't need to change your experience. What you worked with in Elastic Alert, for instance, just put re-alert enabled and what's the alerting period. So this is what we did. Just do the same. Just add the re-alert, enable true, and then the duration, and the automation will exactly do this kind for you. The second thing is the spike alerts, because spike alert, it detects the massive change, whether it's up spike or down spike. For that, you need to have two sliding windows, the current one and the previous one, and you need to look like at the events and how much actually the ratio between the previous window events and the new Windows events, and whether the spike is up or down, then you act based on that. When we moved that to Kibana, it actually felt more like homework algebra, I would say. Yeah, like you started juggling windows and then writing formulas to actually know if the spike is up or down. But the fun thing is not like with your traditional math problem, but with your production traffic. You need to figure this out. So this is how it looks in the UI. And then what we did in the automation is just add the same implementation as it was in the previous tool, which was already supported there. So you just define the spike, the height, and everything behind all of this mathematical logic has been done for you. Cool. What other perks we have in the automation itself? So we have native support for ESQL, which is the new way of writing queries. Actually, it makes them much more smarter, I would say. Minified configuration. This is what we saw. Is if we would not need to have a huge YAML files to deal with services. We just provide what matters. And then the most recent addition, I would say, is the Service Factory, because with this kind of automation, we hooked up this with the Service Factory engine, which is an engine like creates all the necessary alerts whenever a new service is deployed. So now you don't need like to submit a support ticket, there is a new service being deployed, or submit a PR for the alert. So once that is run, these alerts are being created for you and everything is nice. What's exciting for us is the future experience that we are doing. First of all, we want to make alerts not shouting at us, but actually work with us. And this is by making it more smart. So instead of just a notification, it just can run some runbooks or even kick up an agent to troubleshoot or execute some actions as a remediation. Alert inhibition support, which is also an interesting use case that we are looking at, because there's this usual use case when you have a single alert, which let's say there's a DB communication problem, but there is 20 services that relies on it. But in general, you get 50 alerts out of that, but you are interested in one. So this is what we are working on with this kind of automation and with the Kibana action filters. The second thing, as we said, is the multi-dimensional alerts by combining logs and metrics. And if the community wants in, of course, we are considering building an open source version of that, putting for all the people who wants to have this kind of functionality, because I would say good alerting is worth sharing. Yeah. Let me wrap this up quickly in 4 big ideas. So the first one is bridge the gap between code and clicks. So we proved that you don't need actually to choose. Yeah. So you can have both an intuitive UI and still have a GitOps model. And this balance actually creates a superior experience that empowers everyone in the organization. Second, abstract away complexity. Nobody should have a PhD in YAML or have a crash course in writing Lucene queries. So by abstracting the hard stuff into simple commands, we free people to actually focus on what matters rather than actually focusing on syntax. Third thing, embrace a single source of truth. So when config lives everywhere in fragmented tools, then when you centralize it into one auditable version control system, it means that you will have more clarity, more stability, and more sanity, of course. And most importantly, this can mean that sometimes you need to take some bold decisions or go against what the tradition is. You not just need to see what fits in your case and do that. And fourth, turn limitations into opportunities, because each and every tool has its own perks and its own limitation. Try not to see this as a roadblocker, but actually as a chance to innovate, because this mindset is actually how we build solutions that can scale. Yeah. So if I want you to remember one thing from this, is actually remember to automate, abstract, and innovate, because this is the engineer playbook for excellence. Yeah. Thank you for staying till the last bit of it, even though I went a little bit on over time. And let's keep the conversation going. Yeah, find me in the conference, talk more, or connect me on LinkedIn. Yeah, thank you so much.